So, welcome to part 2 of my Yellowstone video. Good morning from a very chilly Yellowstone. It is just above freezing. It's about 7:30 a.m. and I'm about to do my first, it's more of a walk than a hike, Great Prismatic Springs. It's one of the real tourist highlights of the park. The most popular, I think, after Old Faithful, which is why I'm here early. I got here really early, and the people here, and the parking lot is already filling up. Yesterday, 2 days ago, when I drove past, there were cars parked outside on the alongside side of the main road for about 500 meters in each direction. Nice view. The mist rising from the river as I cross the bridge to start the trail. A lot of mist, just some smoke from the Giza, but most of this is just mist rising from the river. This is runoff from the Giza into the river, and you can see that the water, the bacteria in the water has colored the stone. The sun is trying desperately to break through the mist and stuff that's rising from the pond. Just a little surreal, the pond with the Giza in it, the walkway, the sunrise behind there, and this, I don't know if you'd call it a mud flat or a salt flat or whatever it is, but pretty unique. Even though this is very touristy and there are quite a few people here already, I'm pleased I came. The shapes in the sand created by the little currents, by the eruptions, and by the pushing water at different volumes, and of course the coloring from the bacteria, quite special. Hi, I'm interrupting this hike with an important news announcement. No, kidding. It was freezing cold out there with the wind, and the sun was just starting to burn through the early morning mist. So I came back to the RV, and I'll have a cup of coffee, and I'm a sandwich. I'll have a bit of breakfast, and I'm going to wait a little bit and then go out again. That's a huge advantage of the RV. I can sit here warmly, make food, and go out better equipped. Right, now that I'm more appropriately dressed, warmed up, and the sun's a bit brighter, let's try this again. Okay, so it's quite a bit better. It's not great, the visibility, but hey, at least I'm warmly dressed, and you can see a bit more here now. So this is the Grand Prismatic Spring, obviously from the word prism, and you can see the colors are actually from bacteria growing. And even in the distance, I don't know if it'll come out in the camera, but in the distance there, even the steam is tinged a pinkish color from the bacteria. It's particularly pretty, and just different areas have different color. That blue, the top half of the screen, that's not air, that's water. It comes down, comes round, all different colors. Yeah, these are called Bacterial Mats. Different color, as I said, comes from the bacteria. The center of this is deep blue, and it's about 61 meters, 200 feet across, and the microorganisms here use energy. They have pigments in them and make energy from sunlight. The water is actually very warm, It's about 70 degrees Celsius or 160 Fahrenheit, and the bacteria just love this. Okay, so I'm just starting the main hike for the day. It's 10 a.m. Had a bit of a drive to get here. It's a 4-mile hike, a round trip via to the main. First thing on the route, and that's the name of the trail, is Ice Lake, and then a few other attractions along the way. So it's warmed up a little bit. Really nice weather for hiking. Of course, I've got my best friend with me. Every trail that you start here, there are warning signs about bears and telling you what to do and to carry bear spray. So that's what I'm doing. Only about 350 meters into the hike, and I can already make out the lake through the trees here. Incredibly pretty walking here amongst the trees with the lake on the side. And like I mentioned in my previous video, all over the place, trees that have either been chopped down or fallen down. Now some of them, like this one, they've got the root system, you can see it actually fell down, but others have quite clearly been cut. Again, one that's with the root system intact, but has been cut above that. So you could say, yeah, they cut them to clear the path, but these trees go all the way back into the forest there. So I don't know what's going on. Definitely very pretty. And imagine it gets its name Ice Lake because it freezes up totally in the winter. Oh, we're not, even though it's chilly, we're not quite there yet. Once again, the colors and the contrasts walking through the woods here, just amazing. This is going to be interesting. I have a little river to cross, and the way I cross it is via this ultra-modern bridge. Wish me luck. Well, I made it across. Hopefully that's the only bit of excitement for today. So at least in this area, almost all of the dead trees seem to be scorched by fire. The question is whether they were killed by a fire that swept through here and then cut down, or they were caught up in a fire after they were felled or died, or whatever the case was. Time for a short little break. Have a little bit something to eat before I once again have to cross the river. Yeah. This is actually easier than it first looks, because what I'm doing is I'm sitting on the big log with my feet on the little log and just shuffling across. So, got to be smart. Originally, when I looked at it from the other side, I didn't see the two smaller logs, and I thought that I would have to walk across the big one, which didn't impress me very much. Hike is definitely worth it. Shortly after I crossed the river there, a little bit of a climb, and I can see where the river goes down into the valley and downstream all the way. And from the trees, come out into this meadow, flat, easy walking. In the distance, I can hear cars, so I know I'm not too far from the end of the hike. It's been a great hike. I'm pleased it's nearly over, because as you can see in the background, it's starting to get overcast, and the last thing I want is to be caught in the rain. I do have a poncho in my backpack, but I'd still rather not do that. Also the wind's picking up, and I think the temperature is actually dropping. So enough of a good thing for this morning at least. Right, so I'm at the start of my second hike for the day. It is the Monument Giza Basin Trail. It's a mile or 1.6 kilometers in and then the same out. But for the first part of it anyway, the first half, I am going to be walking alongside the river, which I always enjoy. So walking along, it's pretty nice with the river down below. The only disadvantage of this route is that you've got the other side of the river is the road. But oh well, you can't have it all. In a little while we turn away from the road. And while it isn't the Mississippi, it's not quite the streams, the little streams that I had to cross on my previous hike. This is a genuine river. I checked, the water is icy cold, but it's very pretty. I'm willing to put up with the noise of the road in order to walk next to this. Well, this has been quite the climb. It started off nice and level for the first 600 meters, and for the next kilometer it was all climbing. I don't know if you can see the road and the river down there. That's where I started. I believe that white spot there is my van. So boy has it been a climb. But the view from here, well, makes it all worth it. And because this is Yellowstone, the end point of the route is where else but at Giza, or actually two of them. Apparently this doesn't erupt, but it continuously gives off steam, smoke. So I'm going to rest a few minutes and then head down. Back on the level again, and able to appreciate walking next to the stream on a flat path. The peak was at 2405 meters, and I'm now at 2203, so just over 202 meters are climbed, and then climbed down again. And in a way, the down is even worse than the up, because you're using your knees as brakes. So let's see how I feel in the morning. Anyway, about 500 meters now back to the car, and that's it hiking for today. Planning something a little bit different for tomorrow, also because it's supposed to be really cold overnight, so we shall see. Hey, okay, as I mentioned at the end of the last clip, today I'm doing something a little bit different. I'm not actually going into the park. I'm going to do a little bit of exploring of the town of West Yellowstone. I've got a map with all sorts of points along the way of historical interest, and I am going to start today in the oldest building, which is today a museum, and after that go walking through town. Real quaint atmosphere here. This morning was freezing cold. It was -5 degrees Celsius, and now with the time 10:20 in the morning, it is still only 2 degrees, but it's bearable. It's blue skies, the sun's shining, there's no wind, so it's a good day. Let's get started. So turns out that on Wednesdays the museum only opens at 12. Every other day it opens at 10, but never mind. I did learn one fun fact here, and that is that West Yellowstone is the 5th name that this town has had. You can write that down in your handy book of useless information. This was a lodge with passengers arriving by train or departing given either a breakfast or a dinner. It was apparently included in the deal. It's built around 1922. Most of the buildings in this town come from the original buildings come from the early 20th century. There were plenty of people, workers, who came up here temporarily, and this building was the men's dormitory for single men who needed a place to stay while they were here temporarily. Next door there was one for women as well. In the 1970s it was converted into a clinic. Time to cross the road, and that building is our next stop. I wanted to give you some perspective of it before I get up close. The building is the Three Bear Lodge. The original one was built in 1925, but it wasn't a hotel then. It was taken over to be used as a hotel. It was bought by a school teacher in 1974. The day that he took possession, it burned down. He rebuilt it using wood that from the original buildings, what could be saved. It's actually burnt down for 3 times, and this is the last of it now. It's now a hotel. Sorry, this is the last of the wood that's left. So many of the buildings here, you have the stone base and then wood above it. Pretty nice. Just to give you a sense of how big this town is, we're looking at the dining room lodge, whatever, not that the train passengers ate in. That's this, and the building behind it there are pretty much, that's the end of town in this direction. If I look around, we see where those red lights are, or now green, there's one more street behind that, and that's the end there. And here probably 3 or 4 more streets heading down in that direction. And if I swing around now, I've got that lodge dining room at my back, where that truck is coming across there. That is pretty much the end of town. So there's really not that much to this town, but massive because of the park. There's massive tourism here. A lot of motels, hotels, lodges, RV, caravan parking outside of town. So this town gets a lot of traffic. As a consequence, it's a bit touristy. That's what the end comes from, but that's not surprising. Standing in front of what was the very first hotel. It's now a youth hostel in West Yellowstone. The guy was given permission to build it in 1910, and he opened in 1912. 2 of the hotel's more famous guests were Clark Gable and President Herbert Hoover. I'm standing in front of the very first souvenir shop in or trading post in West Yellowstone. It opened in 1925. Oops, the reflection is a bit strong from the windows. And it was traded mainly Native American goods to people visiting. It burnt down in March 73, but it was rebuilt, and now it's still selling souvenirs to the tourists. This little town is just full of these old buildings. Some of them actually were destroyed by fire and rebuilt, but in the same style. I'm not going to describe each and every one to you. Even though it's very touristy here, it is all done very tastefully. All these little shops. And under a covered roof with skylights to let light in. It's just really well done. The only problem is it's now 11 o'clock and it's still only 3 degrees here. Hi, so I went back to the museum after it opened. Unfortunately, I wasn't able to film inside, which is a pity because it was pretty impressive. Really told the history of the place and why people came there and who came there and how they made a living, and also outlined a couple of massive incidents in Yosemite. A massive fire in '88 and an earthquake in '56. It was really well done. That visit was also important for 2 reasons. I found out why there were so many dead pine trees. The trees were killed by 2 types of beetle that infested the areas. Now, years and years ago, before global warming, the harsher winters used to kill most of them off, and there was kind of a balance. But now with global warming, they're kind of running wild, and there's not that much they can do about it. So that's a pity. The other thing that was like, I don't know, I'm not quite sure how to take this. It's the first time in my life when I went to pay the entrance fee, I got a senior discount, because from 55 up, you counted as a senior. So on the one hand, I saved a few bucks, but on the other hand, not sure how I feel about this. Anyway, I'm going to tie up my visit here to Yellowstone by showing you briefly just around the campsite where I'm staying, just to give you an idea of what a regular campsite was. I showed you a little while ago what the boondocking one was like, some round, and sorry about spinning around like that. Here's my camper with Bruno in the window. Each site has got like a pretty level gravel pad. You got a picnic table and a fire pit. You've got some lawn here. On the other side there are hookups for electricity and water, sewage. The difference between this and the campsite that I showed you is that the campsites are fairly close together. So you don't have that much space between you and your neighbor. That said, last night it was quiet, there were no issues. The advantage here as well is that there is a store here where you can buy basic provisions and stuff that you might need. If you have any kind of problem, the technical or whatever, there's someone to talk to. And nice thing about this site, I'm just walking back, just behind me there are sites for people who are tent camping. You get the same table and barbecue place, but you don't, there's place here to put your tent up. Just behind it there's another tent site, and behind that is a little stream which is actually very nice. So this is really a nice place to camp because it's so close to Yellowstone. It is one of the more expensive places, but as far as campgrounds go, it's one of the more expensive places that I'm staying at. But as far as campground goes, it's pretty decent, and the view isn't too shabby either. Anyway, this is the end of the second part of my video about Yellowstone. Tomorrow I'll move on. Yellowstone has just been an incredible experience. I've mentioned this before, but each park that I've been to has been different but special, and Yellowstone certainly meets that criteria. So thanks for watching, and I will see you in the next video.